Good morning, everyone. This is Laurie Meyer. It's just a little bit. Make sure that everything is working okay. And I think I see that, at least on Facebook, that this is showing live. So I'm going to kind of get started here. I want to welcome everybody to spring, even though it really doesn't quite feel like spring outside. We were certainly teased last week with some nice warm weather and sunshine, and it was awesome to get out into the garden. I was just so excited about it. And I've looked forward to next week as far as temperatures, and I think we're going to get back into some spring weather. But maybe this card will put you in the mood for some spring with some cute little chickens and a really nice design that is kind of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Hey Tina and Martinette, thank you so much for commenting so I know that everything is okay in terms of showing up on Facebook. And I am going to just jump right in and show you. This is a peekaboo card. I'm sure many of you have made a card like this before. This is not anything new. Sort of like Martinette said earlier today, it's hard to find new ideas. I think we put our own spin on ideas that have been out for a while, but we can still get some really fun and different and creative ways to make designs that have been there for a bit. But let me show you how the peekaboo card works. This is the front, obviously. And then when you open the card, watch the circle up in the right-hand corner, it changes to another design. So it is kind of fun. It is one that I think will bring a lot of smiles to folks' faces when they get it in the mail, especially kids. If you think about, a kid's birthday, which this is going to be for one of our nephews, he's going to be turning 5. Yeah, he's going to be 5. Oh my word. In a couple of months, and this is going to be his card, and I think he's just going to get a kick out of it. So I'm going to start, and I am literally going to jump in and just show you how to make the card. And it is made with 3 pieces of paper. This is the front of the card. And the front actually, obviously, is this front part, but it's also a flap that is tucked behind, and you'll see how that works in a little bit. The front of the card measures 4 1/4 by 8 1/4, and it's scored. I'm not sure if you can really see that score line, but you're gonna have to trust me. It's scored at 2 3/4. So if I fold it just a tad, you'll see that score line, and that's the piece that gets tucked behind, and that's a critical part, and you'll see that. So that's one piece, that's the front. Then the inside of the card, and let me show you where the inside comes in. If I open the card up, the inside is actually this piece and this piece. So it definitely is the inside. It's kind of like a card in a card. And this piece measures 4 1/4 by 8 1/2. And again, score line is kind of hard to see, but it's scored right in the middle at 4 1/4. So you're creating a little square card, a 4 1/4 square card that gets die cut and stamped, and that's going to go on the inside of our card. So that's the second piece. And I did post the measurements yesterday in our Facebook page, and if you aren't catching these, I will kind of point you to that, and I can also restate them as I'm going through. And then the third piece is the back of the card. So this is the back piece that we're looking at right here. I probably should orient it like this. And there's a little piece that is scored and folded to attach it. So the measurements on this are 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. And then this little itty bitty score is a 1/4 of an inch in. And you can think of that in 2 ways. You can either put the score in, like if I turn it this way and put it in my scoreboard, I could put it in at a 1/4 of an inch. Or you can put your paper into your scoring board and orient it so you have 5 3/4 and just score it at 5 1/2. you're going to get to the same place. So those are the 3 pieces. Okay, I am going to start with the front. I'm going to make this front piece, and I'm going to show you how to make the die cut, and then you're going to notice that there are other die cuts. This will end up being 2 pieces of paper adhered together. So this opening is really a die cut on the front, and then a die cut on the inside piece. And then we also have a die cut on the back of that inside piece. And the important thing is to get them to line up. So if I completely unfold these, you're going to see that all those circles are lined up. This is not difficult, so don't panic. There's some really cool, easy ways, and I'm going to show you how to make that process, at least in my opinion, the easiest way to do. I'm going to, again, grab my front piece. And again, I'll let you know the measurements. 4 1/4, 8 1/4, scored at 2 3/4. So what we want to do first on this front piece is we want to cut the die. We want to cut that hole. You can use any shape that you want. I like circles, and circles to me are super forgiving. You can't put a circle upside down. You can't get a circle tilted so it looks like it's catty corner. It's really a wonderful shape to work with. And it does a lot of decorating on its own. You can put a lot of different things behind a circle. You're going to need 2 dies, regardless of the shape that you use. And those dies need to be close in size. I picked out 2 dies from the Layering Circles die set. And the ones that I'm using, let's talk about the smaller one first. The smaller one has a diameter of about 2 1/8 inch. And it's just the right size. And you'll see that when I put it over in the corner. The second die that you're going to use is going to be just a tad bigger. And that is going to be for the die cuts that we're going to make to put behind the circles. That tape is going to become a key, and you'll find out about that in just a couple minutes. The reason that you want a little bit bigger die cut behind your hole is you're going to get a little bit of room. You're going to be able to have room around that hole to get your sentiment or your image centered in the hole. It's just easier to work with if that die cut piece is a little bit bigger than your hole. So I'm going to use 2 of the circle dies. The smaller one is the one that I am going to die cut all of the holes that are in the card. So I'm using the smaller die to cut these holes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that die in kind of the upper right hand corner. One thing to think about when you're doing this kind of card is this flap is going to tuck in behind this front piece, and you don't want that flap to show when you die cut your shape. So it's best to sort of visually think about the right side of your front when you're making the die cut. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm die cut, or the die, excuse me, on the upper right. I'm going to put that onto my platform and my plate. And you're going to have to forgive me because I do not have the latest and greatest die cutting machine. I apologize. You can again throw me out of the group for not having the latest and greatest. But I'm going to go ahead and put my die cut up in the right hand corner. I like to use a little bit of washi just to keep it where it needs to go. I know that's a little overkill sometimes. And I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. Now I've already prepped the paper, So you're going to just have to pretend with me that you just heard that die cutting machine do its thing. And this is what I get. So I have started the die cutting by putting the circle on the front of that card. Now I want to do the stamping on the front of this card before I do die cutting other pieces. I just find that when I'm on a roll and component of the card ready to go, it's just easier to continue to get that done. And then if I have stamps that maybe I'm using just for the front of the card, then I can put those away and I can move to something else. For this card, as you've already seen, I chose to use some of the stamps from the Hey Birthday Chick. I cannot say that without smiling. I think it is the cutest and the funnest name. So the Hey Birthday Chick, just super, super, super fun. And then also from the Hey Chick stamp set. That's where this one came from. And I wanted to just mention one thing super quick. The Hey Chick stamp set that I have is one that I've had for a couple years. It was a Celebration stamp set a few years ago. And you can tell from the packaging that it's not one of the newer stamp sets. And I don't know if you have this issue, but some of my old stamps tend to do this funky curve, and when they do that, they don't really stick too well to my Stamparatus. Well, what I did, and it's been working for me, is when I used this stamp as an example, I call her the Crazy Chick. So when I use the Crazy Chick, you may or may not be able to see, but I put two little strips of Terran tape, one up here and one down here. And I just use my finger to get a lot of the tacky off. And this works beautifully in the Stamparatus now. And it also is okay when I put it back into the case. It kind of holds its place. So just a tip and a thought that you may want to use if you have some old stamps that are not necessarily cooperating and tend to fall off your Stamparatus when you're using it. But what I'm going to do is I am going to use one of the Crazy Chick stamps from the Hey Birthday Chick stamp set, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp the front of my card, and I'm using Memento ink. I really like Memento ink. It just gives, in my opinion, a nice, clean, crisp stamp. And it is super easy, as we all know, to color with or use on designer series paper, whatever it might be. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that image onto the front of my card. And that is the only image that goes on the front. I tend to get a little scared of white space on cards, and on this one I just decided I needed to let it go. So you'll notice that that's the only thing that is stamped on the front of the card. And then what I am going to do is I'm going to use a collection of pencils. And I'm going to show you this a little bit more in detail on another one of the images because I thought it would be a little fun. But I got out a ton of colored pencils. I love the watercolor pencils that we have. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes one thing that I like to do with coloring images with these pencils. But I use the pencils, and through the magic of Facebook, ta-da, you're going to see that I colored that front image. And I really like to put a little bit of shadowing with the pencils. It does take a little time, but I think it's worth it. It was kind of fun. So our front piece is all set. And I'm going to put the Stamparatus off to the side. And then the next piece that I'm going to work on is the middle piece. And this is where I want to show you a little bit of a trick. And you may have seen this before, maybe not, but definitely one that I think works really well. And it's all about how do I get the holes on the inside piece to line up with this hole, because that's really the key in this card, is to make sure that everything is lining up so that when you move the front, that another image pops in and it's in that same circle. Well, the easiest way that I have found to do this is I'm going to take my inside piece, and let's just talk about this for 2 seconds here. Again, the inside piece measures 8 1/4, I'm sorry, 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, so 4 1/4, 8 1/2, and it's scored right in the middle at 4 1/4. Let's talk about how this is going to be put onto the card. Where does this actually work? Well, it is going to go onto the card like this. So eventually, we're going to have these two pieces connected like this. It's like a card within a card. That means that when I open this piece, I need to put my first circle in the upper right-hand corner. So here's what I like to do. I'm going to take my front piece. This is going to be my little template. To make sure that the front piece and my inside piece, and this is where I'm going to be putting that hole, that they're butted up against each other. The sides are right up against each other. I can feel that. They're right next to each other. And then what I can do is I can use a little bit of washi tape and just very lightly make sure that I'm tacking those pieces together. I don't want them to move. I want them to stay right in the orientation that I have, because I'm going to use this top piece as a template. So I'm just using some washi tape, and I have taken some of the tack off of the washi tape because I don't want it to tear when I put it through my die cut machine. And I'm going to place those two pieces right on top of the plate, and obviously I have a magnetic plate underneath. And then what's really neat is if you take a die, and it's exactly the same die that I used to cut this hole, I'm going to put that die right on top, and it kind of, I don't know how to say this, it's like a puzzle piece. It will not move. It is right where it needs to be. It's kind of hugged around where that is. And what's really nice about it is this is going to help me line up exactly where I need to make that circle die so that the front and the inside piece line up. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, put my plate on the top, and I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. And what is going to come out is going to be a piece that is absolutely aligned with the front of my card, and I'm going to have a circle on the top. So that's going to get me my first two holes. It's going to be on the front of the card, and it is going to get me the in the upper right hand corner on the inside of the card, and they're going to line up perfectly because they were cut together. The last hole that we need to do is on this side, right? Because this is a card within a card. So it is going to end up, again, let's just kind of think about this. It's going to end up going like this, which means we need one more hole in the upper right hand part of this piece. Well, we've already done it once, so let's do it again. Let's use that same trick that we just did to cut the hole for this side of the inside. So we're just going to fold this in half, put it on our platform, grab that same die, and we're going to make sure that you're going to feel this. When you put it in there, it's not going to move. You're going to try and move it, it will not move. And that's how you're going to know that you have it where it needs to go. And then through the magic of, again, through Facebook, just pretend that has washi tape on it. I've put it through my die cutting machine. And what we're going to end up with is a piece that looks like this. And because everything already set with the measurements. Look at this. It is absolutely stinking perfect. It lines up, everything is, you know, butted up against each other, and you have 3 holes that are going to work together exactly the way that you need to do them. So that's the way I would suggest that you'll find out on YouTube and other places, but for me, that just worked the best. Okay, so we've done our front piece. Now let's talk about and work a little bit on that inside piece. And the inside piece is this and this. So the only thing that I did some minimal stamping, but I still think it's fun and cute, is I put this little happy birthday. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get all of that stamping done before I put the card together. It just tends to be a little bit easier to have everything stamped and then you start putting everything together. And just remember when you're stamping this piece that this is the inside. So think of it as a card within a card. And you can tell that I already have everything set up on my Stamparatus. Just going to go ahead and pop that in. And again, I'm going to be using Memento ink and just put happy birthday. I really like this little happy birthday. This comes in the Hey Birthday Chick stamp set. Yep, I'm smiling again. Can't say that without smiling. And I like this font a lot because it's not straight. It's so forgiving. It's wonky. So you don't have to get super crazy, you know, in lining everything up, which I tend to do. I go a little bit overboard on that. But it's just a really cute little sentiment that is for any age. Super, super cute. So there's my stamping for the inside. And I'm just going to get my Stamparatus out of the way. All right, so we've done our inside. We have done our front. So we have these 2 pieces. Now, the next part that I suggest is that we look at and figure out the images that we want to put in our circles. And one of those images is the crazy chick from the Hey Birthday. No, I'm sorry, she's from the Hey Chick. She's from the old stamp set that has been brought back. And then the other image is the one that I put in the back, and that's the first one that you see when you're looking at the front of the card. What I did for both of those, and I'm not going to bore you with this because this is really straightforward, is I stamped the Hey Chick set, and that's the one that I actually put a little bit of the tear and tape. I did that in Memento black ink, and then I put 2 images together from the Hey Birthday Chick, and one actually is a sentiment, the Let's Celebrate You, and then this really cute little dancing chicken popping out of the egg. I think that is just stinking adorable. And remember, when you die cut these, you want to use the larger of the 2 dies that you have. So in my case, I used the larger circle, not the smaller one. The larger one is going to work a lot better. You're going to have a little bit of wiggle room when you put that behind the holes, and we're going to work on that in a second. And I've already colored these images, but I wanted to take just 2 seconds, actually it won't be 2 seconds, just a couple minutes, to show you some things that I've learned about with the pencils. And then I'm going to put everything together, and you'll see how it comes together pretty easily. So I'm going to do this quickly because I don't want to get into the time that I know Sue's going to be using in just a few minutes. But I love colored pencils. I have worked with them for a while. And if you've worked with colored pencils, you know that it can take some time to get the layering and the coloring and the shading and everything just the way you like it. And it does. It truly, truly does. But in my opinion, it is so worth it because it is a lot of fun. I really think I have more fun coloring as an adult than I did as a kid. A good colorer as a kid. I don't think I had any patience. And now I think I have a little bit more. But what I tend to do is I tend to put a little bit of a layer of color down first, sort of like using alcohol markers. And then I'll come back in with a gray. And in the areas where there might be a little bit of a shadow, I go so lightly, but I kind of go along the outside shape of the image. And I just put a little bit of a gray in that area. I'm not going to do the whole thing because that would definitely take a couple minutes. And then I'm going to come back with, this is Early Espresso, one of our watercolor pencils. And I'm just lightly, this is so lightly, and it's, I'm sure, very hard to see how lightly I'm going. Very, very light, and a little bit of circular motions, and also just a little bit of straight line, just to get a shadow in there. And this to me is relaxing. This is one of the most relaxing ways to color that I have found. And then I come back in with that first color, and I'm going to press down a little bit more. It's almost like you're burnishing the color, and you're going to get this really cool sort of highlight that also gives an illusion of a 3D effect. At least I think it does. And the more you do this and the more layers you add, it's just really fun. So that's kind of the way that I tend to use the color pencils. And that's how I did this crazy chick. And on the hair, as an example, I started with Cherry Cobbler, and I colored her hair in Cherry Cobbler. And then I went back in with Early Espresso, and I guess she has highlights. We'll call it that. That makes sense. She kind of has highlights in her funky little hair. So just a couple of little things that I like to do with pencils, but I can spend hours just playing around with pencils and having a great time. So we have our pieces. Let's put this together. Let me show you the steps in putting it together. We have our front, we have our inside, we have the two images that we're going to stick behind the holes. We also need the back of the card. All right, we're going to start by attaching the front to the inside. And just pay attention when you're doing this to the orientation of your card, because this is how you want it to end up. You want it to end up so that you can open it. And when you open it, you're going to see whatever you've stamped on the inside. That means that we're going to be attaching this piece to the front. And I'm going to use Tombow. Tombow for me, I love, love, love. Just like Martinette said earlier today, it gives you that little extra few seconds to position things where you want them to be before everything gets set. If you prefer tear and tape or any kind of other adhesive, it will work. It definitely will. But for me, I tend to like the Tombow here. I am putting the adhesive on the inside, and I'm making sure that I'm not going past that score line because I don't want to get any adhesive beyond that. And then for me, I'm actually going to stand up because I like to look down when I'm doing this. And I'm just going to try and align it as best as I can. And I do have a couple seconds since the Tombow hasn't quite set, just to make sure that it is aligned. So I'm going to go ahead and just press that down. And I have the front of my card attached. All right. I'm going to go ahead and fold in on the side and give that a nice little burnish. That's going to be my front. And now I want to attach the back. And let's just look where the back is. The back is attached to the back side of the sentiment, the inside. So if I grab the back piece and just need to find where I put that one. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the back. I'm going to burnish where my 1/4 inch score line is. And then I want to attach that to this edge right here. And again, I'm going to use some Tombow because this will give me just a little grace when I put that on. And on this one, you definitely want to be careful as far as not getting glue beyond the score line. So here I'm being pretty careful. I'm going to put that on like this. And then I'm going to make sure I have everything oriented. And I'm going to attach the back of my card to that edge. And just fold it over and make sure that everything is attaching well. So now I have the back of my card, and that little flap is going to go right in front of the back. So the last things that we need to do, we need to put our 2 images on. I'm going to add the one that goes on the back first. And for my card, that is the one that says, "Let's celebrate you." And where I want that to go is I want it to go on the back piece, and I want it to line up with that hole. And the best way that I've found to do this is to actually put the piece on top of the hole and sort of hold it up to a light and make sure that it's in the place where I want it to be. Just going to add a little adhesive to this. So I've got my adhesive on the back, and I've got a light here, so I'm going to cheat really quick, and I'm just going to line this up kind of where I want that to be. I'm looking specifically at the sentiment, and I can peek around to the front and make sure that that looks okay. And then I can just take my card back, put that over, and now that piece is on, and I can see that from the front. Tape. You're going to want to put a couple of pieces of tape on the edge of this piece. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow the piece that moves to slide over this without getting caught. So what I mean by that is this little piece is going to slide over the image that we just put down, and if I don't put tape there, there's a good chance that the edge is going to catch and it's not going to work correctly. The last thing we need to do is we need to put our crazy chick behind this hole, and the way I'm going to do that is put some glue on the back, and this one I'm actually going to hold behind. I'm going to open my card up, and I'm going to take my image and just hold it in the place where I want it to be, and then I'm going to adhere it to the back. And I may want to push her down just a tad. There we go. There we go. So there's my crazy chick in that hole. And now, here's my card. This is the card that I showed you at the beginning, and this is the one that we just made. And when you open up that front, you're going to see that the image changes from the chick popping out of the egg to the Crazy Chick saying happy birthday. And I just invite you to try this kind of card. Obvious statement, you can use any color in terms of cardstock. You could even get really fun and have the inside piece be a completely different color cardstock. That would look really fun and cool. You could also do this with designer series paper. And I've recently found that if you use layers of designer series paper when you're making a card, it's really substantial. So don't be afraid that this is going to be too thick, or it won't stand up if you use designer series paper. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I look forward to seeing all the peekaboo cards that you are going to make. And also I'm looking forward to seeing the project that Sue Stapp is going to share with us in just a couple minutes at 11:15. And please enjoy the rest of your day. And Martinette, thank you so much for continuing to get us together. This has been fun as always. So ladies, have a great day and see you soon.